after my mushroom trips, after I really started feeling like I was coming into a homeostasis and like a balance in life and what I would call my own like personal little harmony or enlightenment. Not to say enlightenment in the way like I know all the answers, but just a sense of self-awareness and the ability to be like, I don't know things. And that made me feel like I knew what I was doing. It's like, just by saying the things that I don't know is something that I don't know, it means that I'm in this like mode of truth now. Right. And so they led me into this thinking of like helping the world. And I was like, what could I do? And I kind of put my ego on hold after one of these really deep psilocybin trips / meditations. And I was like, I wonder if anyone's come up with like a global solution. I wonder if anyone's like out there that has just dedicated their life to this global solution idea. And so I started looking and I was like all over forums, like, anyone come up with a global solution? Anyone come up with solutions for all the problems in one way? And it sounded kind of weird. Some people would be like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then one person, I don't even know who this is, was just like posted on a forum somewhere. He's like, check out the Venus Project. It was just that. I don't know what's that. I looked it up and I found this guy, Jacques Fresco, who died like 7, maybe 8 years ago at 102 years old. And he lived through the Great Depression. And this man dedicated his whole life to coming up with a global solution. His whole life he dedicated to understanding life, understanding the
solution to what?
The world's problems. As silly as that sounds, and as grandiose as it sounds.
Yeah.
This was a Einstein, Tesla level engineer thinking dude that has also had conversations with Einstein in his time.
Really? Where is he from? He was from Europe and he came over here?
I don't know his exact background. We could look it up, or we could like bling. But
Jacques Fresco. We'll put it.
Yeah.
So you always,
but he grew up. They came to the States, and he was like a little child in the States during the Great Depression, and so he remembers as a child. Let's say when you're like 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, when you go from just basic sentence to like start to thinking, and your mind's forming. He's looking around at people on the street, sitting outside window shops with like blankets and all these things inside, and they're like freezing outside. Food, but there's food right on the other side of a window.
Yeah.
So he was seeing a human with this need for a basic necessity, and the basic necessity 5 feet from them with this weird infrastructure that didn't allow it to be like transactional.
And he said, we have to fix that.
He was just like, this is obviously off.
But by the way, Pat, I love that like thought.
Yeah.
Because that is a huge problem. The wealth gap. And I've had that exact same thought. I remember being on the road, like literally traveling like your professor friend, like, sleeping in parks and stuff, just like finding my way, traveling, working on farms. And anyways, I'd look at these big hotels and I'd be like, there's probably an empty room in there.
Yeah.
Like there's probably a lot of them.
Ton of them.
And it doesn't make any sense. And obviously it's a bigger problem than I could solve right now, but this dude, Jacques Fresco, doesn't think so. What is his thoughts on it? Because it's a huge problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not about snapping your finger and having it fixed. But the cool thing is, in a moment in your life, in a little tiny period of time, we can orient ourselves towards that solution.
I love that.
And in that situation, you're being the change you wish to see the world, and you kind of are shifting. For your own self, when you do it, you shift your whole life. When you look at the world in a way that's like, oh, at the foundational level, we just kind of like, we did our best back in the day, and now since we're way smarter, we should probably go back and redo it. And that's a hard thing for anyone to grasp, because the idea of changing the way we set up communities and live in the general sense is like, whoa, wait, what?
Yeah, and it goes against like what we have, because we're attached to.
Yeah, and so Jacques Fresco.
But if it's for the best,
what is
like just the new practices, new systems, new culture. But anyway,
Well, whatever makes more sense is going to be for the best. But a lot of us get to a point where we go from child to adult and we have to like start doing things. And the way our environment's set up now is like when you shift into that adulthood, you just start doing so much stuff that you don't have this time for your intuition or your silence anymore. You don't have this time to like explore these real innovative, past the Maslow's hierarchy of needs type thoughts. You know what I mean? So you just kind of like have been developed with the whole environment around you and how it works as what is the truth. And if you don't have any classes, or you don't have a moment in which someone challenges you to think about changing that or coming up with a better design, which is a really rare conversation to bump into. It's not like you're sitting down at an Applebee's bar and the guy next to you is like,
Yeah.
you ever think about what we could really do to change everything tangibly, instead of complain about it? It's just not like it's not a normal thought. And so that's why I felt so...
People are in their shit. They're just in their...
They are. We're bogged down.
That's it.
You go from being a child asking life's most important questions at like 6 years old when someone gives you this funny answer, and you don't revisit it because by the time you get to 15, you're like worried about what soccer team you're going to be on, or what friends you're hanging out with, or which kind of bike you got.
What major? What's your major?
Yeah, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? I don't know. I haven't done anything ever, so I really don't know. But let me pick something.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, they're like, don't love their job.
Right. It's like, who would have thought?
And then you have like this income coming in. You got bills. You got a car. You got a Jeep Cherokee that you just had to have, and then you're paying bills on that. You got a house, which is like incredibly expensive, and you're like, I could pay all my bills, but if I take a couple of months off to try to figure my life out, everything will crumble. And so you're bogged down by these things.
It's interesting, bro, what you're saying. Like, I guess this whole idea of like taking a pause. A lot of business like leaders and stuff, they say, hey, just literally shut your doors down for a week and go figure it out, and then show up in a better way next week and have a better product. And it's kind of the same thing with life you're talking about.
Yeah, we don't have it built into our how our society works right now. We don't have it built in to have these moments. And a lot of people want to think it's conspiracy. And I don't necessarily hold that point of view. I think everyone's doing their best. Yeah. I think everyone's been doing their best forever. And in a moment where you find a specific individual that's chosen to lie on a study and jeopardize human lives, in that person's own little reality, they think they're saving employees' jobs or their own well-being, and they've never been blessed with this spiritual approach to life that makes them feel connected to everything. So they're kind of in their own little narrow view of the world. I still think
separation.
He's doing his best. Even if he's killing 100,000 people, it's crazy to say.
It is crazy. I laugh because it's crazy.
Yes. And I'm not saying that we could perceive him doing a better job or find ways that he could do things to get a win-win, but he can't see that. And the way that person lives makes it unavailable for us to really get in to change it. But I do think everything's doing its best.
It's interesting what you're saying, like the idea that guy makes a decision to whatever it is, start a civil war in some country, whatever you're talking about, horrific.
Or just release a medicine or a product that might kill a bunch of infants or cause a disease.
Whatever it is, exactly. The motive, I don't know, but like that is it's an interesting thought. But just like to sit with the idea that we are capable of that, like that's what Jordan Peterson talks about, like facing. There were people in the Holocaust who were working with the government, like all excited to help. What's going on? It's just like makes me sick to my stomach.
Which comes back to the main principle, unless you finish.
No. Thanks for saying that. And all I'm saying is it's like it is a better feeling to not think it's like some conspiracy. It's just like literally these people are lost, bro.
I don't think you can be at peace with life in a whole if you think that a bunch of it's out to get you. That's not to say let your guards down. That's unwise.
Facts.
So when I say everyone's doing their best, that doesn't mean I'm letting the child predator come over for meatloaf and stay in my spare bedroom.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to treat them like someone who's evil. I'm going to treat them like a damaged human that hasn't had the right setup to be able to heal from that and grow from that.
Super mature, dude.
So the main point
is
when I found Jacques Fresco, he's a very wise man. He explored indigenous tribes mostly, which makes his philosophy really sink in with me, because when you observe humans doing things in a completely different culture, you realize what parts are human and what parts are culture. And you start to very quickly realize that we are our environment. You could be raised a headhunter and think nothing's wrong with it.
It's so true.
He has this beautiful kind of way of explaining. Jacques would explain you meet a headhunter and he's like, oh, I know I have a head on the wall, and you'd be like, oh, you feel bad about the fact that you've killed a man? He goes, no, my brother has more heads than me. I only have one. You know what I mean? They don't have that place in them to think that it's bad because that's not their culture. So much of us is our environment and the area that we're raised in. That's why he realized it's so important to revamp how we live in community. And so that ties into this bigger more abstract view of nature as this whole thing. Some people call God, some people call universe, some people call whatever, but the Tao say a lot of cool things about nature, and aligning yourself with nature, being at peace with nature, and also realizing that everything is nature can put you in this beautiful, harmonious place. And he realized that our environment is everything. It shapes humans more than anything else. We spend countless hours talking about all these little things we have to change when really it's like you just live weird.
Right.
Yeah. And so when you
you're
start
in a tenement or go on, because it's the environment. It's the environment. And by the way, to your point, you said, and through community and like restructuring that. So go on.
Yeah. So then you start thinking about the basic necessities. And one of the main principles, we'll go over it. I'd say you need shelter, or to feel like wherever you're laying down at night is safe and healthy. And you don't want it to cause a bunch of stress for you also. And then you got food and water. With those two things, if you had those in a healthy way, clothing or whatever, just the basic amenities, I actually don't think even healthcare is a thing that a lot of people would have to worry about. I think if you were in a stress-free community and environment, and not stress-free completely, but something that's set up to be stress-free, and you had healthy food, and you weren't stressed out by keeping up with the Joneses, like having to work every day to pay these bills for these things you don't really need, you would find that a lot of healthcare just dissipates in terms of necessity, because a lot of our healthcare comes from these main fundamentals being out of whack.
We're in the garden.